people they can be your biggest asset, or they could be your limiting factor of like not being able to find and retain the right people on your team.
Yeah. Building a team is a bit of a art and a science, isn't it?
Absolutely. So in particular, what we're anchoring this around is, a team that's involved in maximizing a calendar. So you've got, customers who come in who book an hour, half-hour schedules and appointments, and being able to find people who can provide great service to those customers, get them results, and being able to find those people and keep them. What are the biggest challenges that you see with the leadership clients?
Whenever I start talking about people, I always back out, and sometimes this frustrates people, but I think it's important to understand, what are you asking of people? Because too many business owners just want unicorns in every position. They want them to be able to flex up and down to skill sets and want them to be able to do way more than most people can do. And they're asking too much of people and want to pay too little for it. So I always back out and say, okay, what problem do you solve for who? What's the value of solving it? What is the capability that you have that allows you to deliver that value? Now, what are the competencies that you require, and how much of each competency? And so until you can build a competency framework and understand the different skills you require and understand how you're going to bring those skills together to execute value for the customer, people are always going to be a problem for you. Because you're going to end up with either overskilled people who are not happy with their pay, or you're going to end up with underskilled people who can't deliver what you need them to deliver. And it's not their fault. It's your responsibility as a business owner to be able to clearly see that connection. And too often we think there's only one way. I got to hire. And the issue when you're a real small business, or you're growing, say you're a $600,000 to $5 million business, there's always going to be a time where you need like half of an FTE. So you're always building almost this modular approach to how you're going to build and grow your team. And you've got more experienced people coming in that can only do certain things. You've got less experienced people who want to learn but don't quite have the skills. So how do you put your team together? And that requires you to go, okay, how much revenue am I going to do through what services? Therefore, what skills am I going to require to bring together? And most don't map that out. And until you map that out, you're always going to be a little bit off on how you put your team together. And that's going to show up in frustrations for you or your people. So whenever we get the question around, okay, I want to build a team, I can't help you build a team until we first understand, what do we require on that team? What type of flex? And once you can see that, there's 1,000 ways to now build a team. And this becomes awesome to put together, because now I don't have to over-index on people. I start to look at my world through people and partners, or people and subcontractors, or fractional positions, or part-time people, depending what kind of business you're in. And now you can start to build a really amazing team that's clear on what they show up to do and how they execute that value. And then you can build the enabling component to really help them. So we want to put a little more practical term on this. Let's go to a physio clinic, and you look at a physio clinic, and in order to deploy what they need, they can have the physio, they can have the kin, they're going to need somebody at the front desk, optimizing appointments, getting hold of clients, scheduling, whole 9 yards. So how do you see that composition weekly? How much of what do you need? And then what's your current team look like? Is it ready to deliver that value? And so often when we get done that mapping, you can clearly see where the gap in, and it always comes down to this: what skill set do I need for how many minutes? And you can clearly see the gap in minutes of a skill set that they don't have, and they hadn't seen it before.
Let's kind of dig into those roles a little bit, because I think every business that's especially in service, there's the skill that you need to do the core job that customers require. So, making the donut, so to speak. If you're a physio, it's you have your own skills as a physio, but you also probably employ other physios who can fill their calendars with appointments. But then you've got a team around those people who are helping facilitate it: admin, operations, support. In some businesses, you might have sales and marketing, but probably less so. You're combining that front desk with it a little bit. But how do you think of that in terms of the sequencing of those hires? Do you want to at what point do you want to bring in support staff? Do you want to maximize the amount of output that you can build through just hiring people who actually perform the service that you offer? How do you think about that?
It's really hard to answer that question without knowing the size of the business. Where are we starting? Right. So like a 600,
say they're a million or two.
million or two. So if you're talking about $1.5 million or so, you're probably at a 7 to 12 person organization, depending on what you're doing. And at that point, you got to look and go, okay, how many of what service am I doing? What does that require to do the service? And then what's it require to manage everything around the service? The scheduling, the picking up the phones, the responding to clients, the cleaning up of the beds, all that kind of stuff. And you really have to run through, what does an appointment look like, right? I come into let's start even back further. I call or email, they connect me with someone's schedule, or I book an appointment. I come in, I generally have to fill out a form, especially if it's my first time for an initial consult. How does that initial consult get translated into something that the physio knows what to do with? And how does the physio then take what I've given them and translate it into a treatment and a treatment program? And then how do I then book my next appointments and come in? And all through there, you'll see there's a number of tasks that need to be done, and they will take a discrete number of minutes to do, and then you just add them up for all the people you plan to see. So if I plan to see, if one physio is going to take 20 or 30 appointments a week, or if I'm going to run a physio with 2 kins, so they're actually going to take 120 appointments a week because of the mix that they're going to have come in between initial consults and treatment plans. And I'm not trying to make this more complex than it is. I'm trying to make sure that people understand that it is a puzzle you're putting together. And at different stages, the puzzle's never quite perfect. So at that point, you need to lean on other services that don't cost you a full-time member. The biggest mistake that people make when it comes to resourcing is they hire too fast and too heavy, and there isn't enough cake at the end of the week. So they get out ahead, especially early on. So they end up paying all their return to good people who are there full time, and I only really need a 3/4 time person. So you're constantly going, how do I deal with that? How do I deal with when I don't need a full FTE? And don't get me wrong, there's lots of flex work they could do. The front person could maybe clean rooms and all that kind of stuff. The front person could maybe do AR, submit. There's lots of tasks that front desk person could do that would mean I need less on the back end, right? So it really requires you to see the business and how many hours of what tasks, and then figure out where you better off. Because a lot of times you're actually better off paying more per hour, but using far less hours when you're in between, say, 2 and 3 FTE on a certain.
Is that just to be able to get people who are willing to do flex work or part-time work? Because I imagine if you're, especially the person who fulfills the service, like a massage therapist or someone like that, it may be difficult to find people who are willing to who only need part-time work.
It can be, but then you got to go, what makes your part-time position more attractive? And often once you distill it down, you then find the segment that is appealing for, or is enjoys, wants to do part-time work. You see this all the time. I mean, there's, especially when you look at the silver tsunami that's coming at us and a bunch of people who have retired, there's a number of people that I know that do not want 40 hours a week. But you know what they want? 20 hours a week for 20 weeks a year. So can you as an individual, as a business owner, become excellent at putting the puzzle together, and then you can really benefit? There's also, if you look, there's a whole movement on how to make your business more accessible to mothers who want to re-enter the workforce, or single mothers who have time limits, right? There's certain points where they want to be there for their kids. Can you create a job that is 4 hours a week, right in the middle, that really appeals and works around their schedule? You can get more out of their hours, pay them more, and not have someone there full time not doing the work, right? So there's lots. Once you identify what the gap is and what skill set the gap's in, there's tons of creative issues or creative opportunities to solve that problem.
Let's talk about how that applies to the leadership program. For those who are interested, maybe you tell people a little bit about the program, and also, how does it help them solve that puzzle.
Yeah. So if you're in any business, you've got thousands of problems. You're going to trip over more problems next week than you'll be able to fix in 5 lifetimes. The real key to good strategy, and that's what we do in leadership, is it's not about solving all the problems. It's about identifying the most important ones, getting them in sequence, understanding the value of unlocking a solution to that problem and putting it in play. And so what good strategy should do is say, this is the business I want. This is the business I have. These are the top 3 things I need to figure out in order to get there. And I'm going to work on those. I'm not going to work on the problem that came up last Thursday. And if you work with I've worked with so many business owners, and really the bias is to the fire that happened last week, not to the systemic problem they need to fix to build the business they want. Yeah. And the brain is not wired to see systems or puzzles. It's wired to remember events that are extraordinary. So you get caught up in these drama fires, and then you go, well, I need a way to fix that. Maybe. I mean, if you're a business owner, you learn sooner or later that you can't possibly fix all the problems. And that's not the point of being a business owner. The point of being a business owner is to fix the critical issues and to understand how to contextualize them.
And let some fires burn.
Yeah, you're going to let them burn because they're actually going to burn out, because they're not even really problems. They're results of some other problems not being solved.
Symptoms.
They really are. You see this all the time. The other thing that you find is that these problems that people will bring to you, symptoms, you want to call them that, they are normally the result of me not having figured out the bigger issue, and they're boiling over in a bunch of smaller issues. The smaller issues I can see. But what I really have to get to is, what are the big levers in my business, and how do I fix those? And there aren't that many in any business, right? Am I attracting enough eyeballs? Marketing. Am I converting those eyeballs? Sales. Am I delivering what I promised? That's delivery. Am I doing enough of it per week? That's scheduling. And am I doing it with people who love doing it and we're working together to do it better all the time? That's HR. And if you look at most organizations, you can look at just those 5 areas and you start to see where we are missing the ball just a little bit in any one of those areas.
And the really good thing about the leadership program is that it isn't just the business owner who gets to, get in on that training and that help, that strategic help. It's the team as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest changes that we made. When you just help the business owner, you may come to a great solution, but then that business owner has to go back to their senior team and convince them. Versus if the team is going through strategy together, the team is aligning on what they're going to fix. And when the team aligns on what they're going to fix, you have commitment to fix it coming out of there. And so way too many coaching programs focus on the senior leader alone. That normally doesn't work, because you come back to your team and you tell them this great solution, and then they tell you why you're an idiot. They don't say it that way all the time, but they basically go, no, that's not the real problem here. Here's the real problem.
Because you're not getting their buy-in, because they're not part of coming up with it.
Right? You really can't drag senior leaders over broken glass. You can't. You can only tell people to do things for so long. You need to involve people in that decision-making process. There was one leader in our last program, and he said, I have been saying some of these similar things to 2 of my guys on the team, but it wasn't getting through. He said, the biggest benefit that I've had out of the leadership program is that I can sit back and be in content, and I can let somebody else drive the light bulb moments for these guys. And then I can play a role in enabling those light bulb moments into action, which is great.
Yeah. Sounds a bit like couples therapy, where it's like the therapist says something that one of the spouses has been saying forever, but it's different because it came from someone else.
Yeah, and the biggest thing as a leader is you can't then go, see, I told you so. That doesn't work. Just like couples therapy, it won't work either.
Yeah, imagine. Okay, so that's a little bit of help and guidance around building teams and the order in which you build them. If people are interested in the leadership program, they can go to leadership.com, apply to be the next cohort, which is in October. The space is limited, so if anybody who who would be kind of like the perfect person who can get the most benefit out of the program.
I think there are 3, maybe 4 different types of businesses at different stages that can get the most out of this program, right? So if you're between 600,000 and 1.8 million, you have a business that is you're going to really want to think, how are you growing that business? All right. If you're in that 1.6 to $2 million range, you're at the most dangerous point of a business owner's existence. Most don't make it beyond that, and they fizzle out and go backwards or go bankrupt. And so that is a really critical juncture to go, what am I doing with this? Am I optimizing it and making a lot of money off of it and getting to my best life out of it? Or does my best life involve scaling this business beyond 5 million? And we can really help owners set up for that. And then the businesses that are over 5 million, they can really benefit from this because they have a lot of moving parts, and they can bring all those moving parts together and get really focused and increase the velocity of improvement.
That's who it's great for. Check it out, leadership.com. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to help this podcast grow, please share it with your friends and colleagues. That would mean the world to us.